The stench hits before the carcass comes into view. A dead horse, 3 days bloated in July heat, legs stiff and obscene in the air, flies rising off it in a black cloud that scatters and resettles with your every step. Your hands are already gloved in nothing but the calluses of 10 years' work, because gloves rot faster than you can afford to replace them, and the rope in your grip is looped around the animal's hind legs, the other end tied to your cart horse, one of the few beasts in this town that will still tolerate your smell close enough to be harnessed to it. You brace, click your tongue, and the horse leans into the load. The carcass drags across cobblestone with a wet, tearing sound that you stopped flinching at years ago. Somewhere behind shuttered windows, a woman gags and slams her shutter closed. You do not look up. You have work to finish before the heat turns this animal into something that draws sickness into the well water. And if you are slow, the town council will remind you, again, exactly how replaceable you are. You were not born into filth. You were born into it the way a miller's son is born to flour. Inherited the moment your father's trade became your surname's curse. In the German lands of the century, the schinder, the knacker, the flayer, the man who drags dead livestock from the streets and skins them where they fall, occupies a rung of society lower even than the gravedigger, lower than the executioner some days, because at least the executioner deals in human justice. You deal in rot. Your morning began before dawn, roused not by a bell but by a boy sent running from a farmstead a mile out, breathless, telling you a cow had died in the night and needed clearing before the sun made the job unbearable. You dressed in the same leather apron you have worn so many seasons it no longer smells of anything but old blood and tallow, and you walked out past neighbors already awake, already turning their faces from your door the way they turn from an open grave. At the farmstead, the cow lies where it fell, legs already stiffening, and the farmer stands well back, arms folded, watching you work without offering to help, because helping would mean touching what you touch. You loop the rope, drag the animal onto a sledge, and begin the real labor, the flaying, done in the field so the hide can be salted before it spoils, the knife moving in long, practiced strokes along the belly, peeling the skin back like a coat too tight for the body beneath. The smell of opened rumen is different from anything else in this world, thick and green and sweet in the worst way, and you have learned to breathe through your mouth and think of the coin waiting at the end of the cut. Hide goes to the tanner, who takes it through a boy sent to fetch it, never through your own hands passed directly into his. Fat is rendered down for tallow candles burned in homes whose owners would not let you pass the threshold. Bones are boiled for glue, ground for meal, sold to the very farmers who watched you work with their arms crossed and their noses covered. If the animal died of disease rather than age, your task turns darker still. You must bury the carcass deep enough that no dog digs it up, deep enough that the sickness in its blood does not seep into a well or a stream, and if you fail at this, if fever spreads through a village because a carcass was buried too shallow, the blame will land on you before it lands on the disease itself. You have seen it happen to another knacker 2 valleys over. A plague year, dead cattle stacked faster than one man could bury them, and when sickness followed, the town did not ask whether he had time enough or hands enough. They only asked why the schinder had failed them, as though rot itself answered to your name. Your children will inherit this the way you inherited it. No guild will apprentice your son to leather or iron or wood, because guild charters across the German territories name the knacker's trade explicitly among those too dishonorable to touch. A stain that does not wash out with baptism or good behavior, a stain written into law. Your daughter's marriage prospects narrow to the same closed circle as the executioner's children. Other knackers, other gravediggers, other families already sealed inside this quarantine of the unearlich, because no honest family will risk their name touching yours. You did not choose this cart, this apron, this smell that clings to your skin no matter how many times you scrub with vinegar and river water. You inherited it whole, the way you inherited your father's bent back from a lifetime bent over other men's dead animals. If refusing this trade meant your children starved by winter, but keeping it meant they'd never be allowed to marry outside the same circle of the damned, would you still climb onto that cart every morning? Say it honestly in the comments below. I read every one of them. But you don't have the luxury of deciding tonight, because a farmhand has just come pounding on your gate, telling you 3 sheep dropped dead in a single field, and the smell will only get worse the longer you wait. You work through the night by lantern light because sheep left too long draw wolves down from the tree line, and wolves near a farmstead cause more trouble than the disposal was ever worth. The work is mechanical by now. Rope, drag, flay, salt, bury, or burn. But tonight, alone in a field with 3 dead animals and no one for company but your own breathing, something colder settles into you than the night air. You realize the town does not actually want you gone despite every door closed in your face, every mug kept separate, every marriage forbidden. They need this rot removed as badly as they need bread baked and water drawn, and rather than face that need honestly, rather than admit that someone must do this so the rest of them can live without the stench of decay in their streets, they have simply decided that the person who does it must be lesser than they are. It is easier to despise you than to admit their own town cannot function without you. The night ends the way it always ends, your cart heavier with hides and tallow than when you started, your hands raw, the smell of the field still riding in your clothes as you walk back through streets that will not fully wake until you have already finished and gone. Somewhere behind those same shuttered windows, candles will burn tonight made from fat you rendered, and no one lighting them will think of your name. A town cannot survive its own filth, but it refuses to honor the man who carries that filth away. So it built you a cage of contempt instead, and called it your rightful place. If this is the first time you've heard the true cost of a clean street, subscribe right now. We are nowhere near done bringing the worst jobs back from the dead.